Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is week 7 lecture. This lecture will be talking about healthcare data, information, and knowledge. The learning objectives of this lecture are distinguish informatics from other computational disciplines, especially computer science. So كيف نميز بين الانفورماتكس والكمبيوتر science. Understand computer theoretical concepts to convert data to information. Also, describing a health application that is used to convert data to information to knowledge. Finally, we're going to describe the differences between data-centric and an information-centric technology. So, first of all, let's start to define each of the following: data, information, and knowledge. Data, observations reflecting differences in the world. So it comes in a form of science and signals. ممكن تكون numbers, ممكن تكون word, or any other science that represent discrete facts about an object. So data, it doesn't have any meaning. Like for example, if I'm observing the color of the light and I say red color or red light, here I'm just giving a data. أنا جالسة مجرد إني أعطي بيانات. This data, it doesn't have any meaning. And information, it's a data that has a meaning. يعني for example, if I say إنه red color in a traffic system means stop. أنا هنا قلت means it to stop. معناتها أنا جالسة أعطي معلومة، جالسة أعطي information. الداتا هنا صار لها meaning، صارت meaningful data. So لما تكون عندي meaningful data تكون عبارة عن information. بالنسبة للknowledge, it's information that is justifiably believed to be true. So it gives context through experience, values, and insight. For example, if I say drivers who drive over a red traffic light are more likely to kill or get killed. Here البارت الأخير للسنتنس هذه اللي هي likely to kill or get killed. هنا it's something believed to be true. إنه ممكن هالشيء يحدث if the drivers drive over a red traffic light. And this is the knowledge. Here I have another example. For example, if I have a patient and I'm checking the temperature of the patient. If I say a temperature is 101.2 Fahrenheit. It's just a data, مجرد بيانات, it doesn't have any meaning. So here data. طيب, if I say a temperature is 101.2 Fahrenheit and this is higher than yesterday, here data صار لها معنى, صار لها meaning. So هنا تحولت من data إلى information. طيب, when I'm taking an action, لما قلت إنه okay, it's higher than yesterday, so this patient has an infection and I will order an antibiotic. هنا تحولت information عندي إلى knowledge. Now let's talk about distinguish informatics from computer science. كيف إني أقدر أميز الinformatics من الكمبيوتر science. Data is largely the domain of IT والprofessionals and computer scientists. So دائما computer scientists والIT بشكل عام, they are all dealing with data. The IT professionals and computer scientists concentrate on technology, including computing system, which is composed of hardware, software, and algorithms as well. So while computer scientists do develop algorithms, they use the algorithm or they develop algorithms to search or sort data more effectively. But what's being sorted is irrelevant. What does that mean? It means that it doesn't matter if the number that we are sorting are a salary or a weight of people. For example, إذا أنا جالسة أسوي sorting the string, it doesn't matter إذا كان الstring هذا عبارة عن name أو كان عبارة عن email addresses. So relationship between informatics and computer science, as you hear in this picture, computer science involves data, involves databases searching or sorting اللي هي الالgorithm. أما بالنسبة للinformatics, it involves knowledge, it involves meaningful data اللي هي information. طيب, there is something in the middle between computer science and informatics which involves both of them, computer science and informatics, اللي هي information retrieval. Information retrieval, what is it? It's finding materials, usually تكون documents of an unstructured nature, يعني تكون عبارة عن text unstructured that satisfies an information need from a large collection. A large collection هذا يكون stored on computers. So as we said in the previous slide, information and knowledge are addressed by informatics, data are addressed by computer science, والinformation retrieval involves both, اللي هي computer science اللي هي data, والinformatics اللي هي information اللي هي meaningful data. Example of information retrieval: finding documents that describe the relationship between aspirin and heart attack. And be aware that information retrieval is concerned with retrieval of information, not retrieval of data. This slide talking about the data of the real world and computers. So in order to understand the relationship between data, information and knowledge, you must understand the relationship between what happens in a computer and the real world. So as we know, in a computer do not represent meaning. احنا نستخدم computers to input, store, process and output binary information. Binary information اللي هي 0 وال1, لأن الكمبيوتر يتعامل مع الماشين لانجويج. الماشين لانجويج هي عبارة عن الباينري اللي هي الزيروز وال1. So each 0 or 1 is a bit. يعني لما يكون عندي 1 this is a bit. لما يكون عندي 0 هذا عبارة عن a bit. لما يكون عندي series of 8 bits, يعني لما يكون عندي for example 1 1 1 1 0 0 0 0 هذه عبارة عن a series of 8 bits. I can call this 1 byte. There are different types of data. We have integers. Integers, for example, لما أقول 345 or such as 66,500 for example. Also we having floating point numbers, اللي هي numbers that contain points such as 14.1 or minus 1.23. Another data type is the characters. الكاركترز اللي هي الألفابيتيك from A to Z. كمان عندنا الكاركتر string. الكاركتر string اللي هي كلمة الword مكونة من characters, and this is called character string such as hello or goodbye. The data can be aggregated into different formats. These 5 formats specify the way that the data are organized within a file. يعني for example الimage file always uses the formats اللي هي الJPG أو الGIG أو الPNG. So أنا لما أشوف فايل الفورمات تبعه أو الكاتيجوري فورمات تبعه عبارة عن JPG, so directly أنا راح أعرف إنه الفايل هذا عبارة عن image. Another format is text file, also sound file which uses WAV أو MP3. Also we have video files. الفيديو files تستخدم الفورمات اللي هي WMV أو MP4. نفس الشيء لما أنا أشوف فايل عندي in my computer الكاتيجوري فورمات تبعه يكون MP4, so directly أنا راح أعرف إنه هو عبارة عن فيديو. Recognizing that these formats do not define what information is available, it's just the category format. So as I said, لما أشوف فايل الفورمات تبعه عبارة عن MP4, so directly أنا راح أعرف الكاتيجوري فورمات تبعه, راح أعرف إنه هو عبارة عن فيديو, لكن ما راح أعرف عن أي information للفيديو هذا, ما راح أعرف معلومات عن الفيديو هذا أو الفيديو هذا عبارة عن إيش. كل اللي أعرفه الكاتيجوري فورمات تبعه. طيب, what is the benefit of having a common or a standardized file format? It's allow sharing of files between computers and applications. يعني for example, if I have a camera that stores a photo as JPG files, I can use any program that read the JPG files عشان أقدر أسوي viewing للفوتو. Now let's move on to converting data to information. In order to convert data to information, we're going to use something called computational model. But before we talk about a computational model, let's first of all explain a conceptual model. As we live in the real world contains physical objects, for example, aspirin tablets, and also it contains people, for example, John Smith, and things that can be done between these two. Let's say John Smith took an aspirin tablet. So مثل ما قلنا, in order to do a computational model لازم قبل نسوي a conceptual model. So conceptual model helping us to design a computational model. طيب إيش هي conceptual model? A conceptual model is a representation of a system made of the composition of concepts which are used to help people to know, understand, or simulate a subject that the model represents. So a conceptual model contains only the parts of the physical world that are relevant to the computation. And as we said, a conceptual model is used to design and implement a computational model. A computational model is the use of computers to simulate and study complex systems using mathematics and computer science. So the computational model هو اللي راح يساعدني to convert data to information. Let's see this figure that we have here. So we have the real world in the left hand side, as you see, contains a person. Let's say that his name is John Smith, and there are many things that we can say about this person. This person has a name, this person has a height, he has a weight, and he has a feelings. طيب الconceptual model اللي نقدر نسميه اللي هو النموذج المفاهيمي defines what is relevant. So everything that is not in the conceptual model is therefore assumed to be not relevant. Here in this example, as you see in the in the right hand side بالcomputational model, عندنا النame وعندنا الage. So any other things about John Smith, سواء الهايت أو الويت, it's not irrelevant. So now here we are converting by using a conceptual model, we are converting the data اللي موجودة عندي بالreal world to information, to a meaningful data. So in order to convert the real world sentence into the computational model, we need first to convert it to conceptual model. بعدها نقدر نحولها إلى computational model. إيش هي فكرة conceptual model أو how can I convert a real world sentence to a conceptual model? Let's see this example. We have here John Smith takes an aspirin tablets. First of all راح أحدد ال objects. I'm gonna select ال objects. مين هم ال objects عندي in this sentence? I have John Smith. This is the first object وهي عبارة عن person. وعندي كمان الاسبرين تابلت عبارة عن object وهو عبارة عن drug. So هنا أنا عندي objects اللي هو person وعندي drug. طيب إيش هو الرول؟ إيش هي relationship between these two objects اللي هي takes. takes عبارة عن الرول. وبكذا أكون أنا حولت sentence real world sentence into conceptual model. Each object can have an attribute. كل object ممكن يكون له سمات. Like for example لو ناخذ ال person object, إيش ممكن تكون سمات ال person أو ال attributes تبع ال person. ال person has a name, ال person has a weight, ال person has an age. So the name وال weight وال age عبارة عن attributes. Let's talk about now the knowledge representation. A representation has three components. عندنا first a represented word اللي هي عبارة عن real word. represented word هي information that you want to represent. information اللي أنا أبغى أسوي لها representing هي عبارة عن represented word. The other component is the representing word اللي هي conceptual model. Conceptual model which contains the data that represent the information. And the third component is the mapping اللي هي relationship اللي تكون between a represented word or representing word. Let's see this example here. In this example, we want to define a represented word, a mapping, or representing word. As you see here, I have different objects, different items, اللي هي ice cube, a glass of water, a pot of water on a fire. I can choose to represent many factors. أقدر أسوي representing للshape of the ice cube. I can represent the size of the glass of the water. But for this example, I just want to focus على the temperature of the water. So far represented words راح تكون هي عبارة عن objects اللي هي ice cube, glass of water, pot of water on a fire. As we said, إنه represented word, it's the information that I want to represent. طيب بالنسبة للrepresenting word, a representing word which contains the data that represent the information. So إيش هو الشيء اللي راح يساعدني إني أسوي representing للinformation، أسوي representing للtemperature of the water اللي هو height of mercury. height of mercury راح يكون هو عبارة عن representing word، لأنه منه راح أحدد أو راح أقدر I can represent the temperature of the water for each object. طيب بالنسبة للمابينج، المابينج بما أنه temperature is represented as the height of mercury in the thermometer, so each thermometer is reflected by a unique height of mercury. So a unique height of mercury for these different objects is gonna be the mapping. This slide is talking about how to make computers knowledgeable. As data are being captured and managed by computers, so information developers can use this data to build system of cognition. For example, we have an information system that is called knowledge support system. This system helps the users to make knowledgeable decision, to make the better decision. In order to make a better decision, it requires a preparation of data and information through another system which is called data warehouse. So إيش هو data warehouse? Data warehouse is database that contains a huge amount of data that is used to make a decision. So the information system هذا يكون مربوط linked to another database which is called data warehouse. بحيث أنه data warehouse راح يساعدني من خلال استخدامي للknowledge support system أنه I make a knowledgeable decision. Here is the point to keep in mind. The distinction between a real word اللي هي represented word والconceptual model اللي هي representing word and the computational model which is the computer manipulate is fundamental to informatics. Why is that? Because when the real world conceptual model or computational model match, so it is possible to get a useful answer. When these three do not match, so the answer that you're going to obtain from the computer are not useful. For example, if I have a program that calculates body mass, BMI, and this program asking the user to enter his data، لكن ما حدد له إيش اليونت اللي يستخدمها، ما حدد له إنه enter your data in kilogram for example، ما حدد له أي شيء. Just ask the user to enter the data. طيب assume إنه البروجرام مثلا gonna calculate الداتا هذه باستخدام الباوند يونت، واليوزر دخل معلوماته أو بياناته in a kilogram unit. So بهالحالة there is no matching between these. So you're not gonna get a useful answer. Now let's talk about converting data to information in a health data scenario. The relationship between data or information or knowledge in a health data scenario. As you see here, for example, عندي data. الداتا اللي هي 112324111. هذا مجرد number، مجرد رقم. So هي عبارة عن it doesn't have any meaning. So هي عبارة عن data. طيب عشان أحول الانفورميشن، لما أقول إنه patient ID is 112324111، so أنا هنا سويت converting من الداتا إلى الانفورميشن، خليتها meaningful data. So صارت عندي information. See here the example also اللي هي C34.90 هو عبارة عن code. الكود هذا is meaningless, it doesn't have any meaning, مجرد كود. عشان أحوله إلى information I'm gonna use something called ال ICD-10-CM. ال ICD-10-CM هي International Classification of Disease 10th Revision Clinical Modification. هي عبارة عن data standard that is used by physicians and healthcare providers to classify and code all diagnoses and symptoms that are recorded in healthcare treatment settings. So بال ICD-10-CM موجودة عندي الكودز وكل كود راح يكون له classification معين. هنا عندي لما استخدمت ال ICD-10-CM حول لي الكود هذا إلى malignant neoplasm of unspecified part of unspecified Broca's or lung. So هنا حول لي الكود، حول لي data اللي ما له أي معنى إلى something meaningful، إلى information. هنا عندي an example of a system that converts data to information, which is EHR اللي هو electronic health record. Electronic health record is a huge source of healthcare data and information. يحتوي على structured data and unstructured data. The structured data, as you see in the picture here on the left hand side, it's much easier to manage. يعني for example لما أبغى أطلع مثلا patient ID, I can directly recognize the patient ID. So it's easy to gain information from. On the other hand, we have unstructured data. As you see here on the right hand side, it's a free text, unstructured data. So it is difficult for computer to process. Electronic health record tends to focus on retrieving an individual patient's information. So electronic health record used to store the patient data and convert it to information. This is the interface of the electronic health record where we can store the patient information. As I said, an electronic health record converts data to information. For example, I'm collecting data from the patient normal. Normal, it doesn't have any meaning. لما أحطها عندي بالelectronic health records, when I enter this data بالelectronic health records in this box, I can read it as digestive inspection normal. So أنا هنا حولت الداتا إلى information, إلى something that has a meaning. طيب, assume that I have a patient and I want to diagnose this patient. To do so, we need first to collect the data of this patient and enter it to the electronic health record system. والelectronic health record system راح يساعدني إنه أسوي converting من data إلى information. طيب, is that it? No. طيب, أنا الحين وصلت لمرحلة الانفورميشن. أبغى السيستم هذا يحول لي الانفورميشن إلى knowledge. أبغى يساعدني to make a good decision. There is another thing that can help me to convert the information to knowledge اللي هي clinical data warehouse. So as I said, I want to convert information to knowledge so I can diagnose. And who can help me to convert the information to knowledge? اللي هي clinical data warehouse. The clinical data warehouse is a shared database that collects, integrates, and stores clinical data from different resources. ممكن تكون electronic health records, ممكن تكون من radiology أو any other information systems. Before explaining the process of the clinical data warehouse, I'd like to explain the tools that can be applied to the data in the clinical data warehouse. One of the tools is the descriptive analytics, which reports, like for example, reporting the number of the patients with breast cancer and their age. So تعطيني تحليلات عن عدد المرضى with the breast cancer and their age and so on. Also another tool is predictive analytics. Predictive analytics is a system that can predict disease based on diagnosis, based on lifestyle. So ممكن أنا أتوقع إيش هي الديزيز الممكن تحدث للشخص هذا بناء على الدايجنوسيس، بناء على اللايف ستايل تبع البيشنت. This diagram explains the process of the clinical data warehouse. So the data from multiple sources, including one or more electronic health records, are copied into a staging database. إيش هي staging database? The staging database where we store data in a particular way and make sure that all the data in the same format. هنا راح نستخدم process اللي هي staging area اللي هي ETL, which is extract, transform and load. So we're gonna extract the data, يعني we're gonna get the data, we're gonna transform it, يعني we're gonna make the data useful, and then we're gonna load it the CDW database, يعني we're gonna save it or store it the clinical data warehouse database. The clinical data warehouse database is associated with metadata. طيب إيش هي الميتاداتا؟ الميتاداتا are data that describe other data. So once loaded into the clinical data warehouse, a different of analytics can be applied. كان الاناليتكس هذه أو التحليلات هذه اللي راح يساعدني فيها اللي هي الميتاداتا. And then the result presented to the user via the user interface. Let's have a look at the benefits of the clinical data warehouse. The clinical data warehouse can be used to evaluate a critical clinical process, cost estimates, and they can analyze potential solutions. So it helps a healthcare provider to analyze patients' information or patients' data. So the provider can use this information to make better clinical decisions. Also, the clinical data warehouse are highly valuable for informatics and evidence-based medical research. So the information that are stored in the clinical data warehouse can be used for researches. Finally, the clinical data warehouse can help track infections and report trends to public health. So the hospital infection control specialists use the clinical data warehouse to track pathogens within hospitals. Also, public health agencies rely on reporting to conduct surveillance for natural or man-made illnesses. What makes informatics challenging? Before answering this question, I'd like first to introduce or to explain the difference between data-centric and information-centric technology. Data-centric industries is where all application functionality is based on a single and simple data model. مثل البانكينج industries تركز لي على البيانات، تركز على الداتا. So it is easy to adapt IT، سهل إنها تتكيف مع التكنولوجيا. Why? Because the data and information are much closer in meaning. بالنسبة للinformation centric اللي هي الاندستريز اللي تركز لي على الانفورميشن أكثر such as the health organization, there are factors that are difficult to measure. Also كمان راح يكون مختلف from patient to patient and from physician to another. For example, if I have patients and these patients are sick, sick هنا أو sickness راح يختلف من patient أو النوع أو type of the sick راح يختلف من patient to another. This table here compare the banking data and the health data. For the first one, which is the concept and description, the concept with description بالنسبة للbanking data precise. يعني if I have an account A balance is equal $15 معناتها إنه this account balance يحتوي على $15. بالنسبة للhealth data هو general, so هو مو دقيق. For example, if I have sick patient, طيب إيش نوع السيكنس I didn't know, هو just أعطاني as a general, الدescription أعطاني إياه as a general. بالنسبة للأكشن بالbanking data is usually not always reversible, so I can move money from account A to B. I can do the opposite way around, I can move money from account B to A. بالنسبة للhealth data الأكشن often not easily reversible. بالنسبة للcontext بالbanking data الcontext precise constant. يعني for example banks in the US they are all using a constant currency اللي هي الدولار. بس بالنسبة للhealth data الcontext vague and variable. الcontext متغيرة. For example normal lab values راح تختلف من lab إلى another. بالنسبة للuser autonomy بالنسبة للbanking data user autonomy will defined and constrained. For example what you can do with checking account is exactly what you can do. بس بالنسبة للhealth data it's variable وتعتمد على circumstances. So for example a clinical privilege depends on training, changes over time depends on circumstances. Users بالbanking data are clerical staff. بالنسبة للhealth data اليوزرز varied. اليوزرز متنوعين including highly trained professionals. بالbanking data time sensitivity there are few emergencies. بالنسبة للhealth data many types of sensitive tasks. Finally the workflow بالbanking data well defined والworkflow بالنسبة للhealth data highly variable. What makes informatics challenging? It is difficult to model all of healthcare information. So biomedical information can be imperfect in different ways. One, incomplete information. So the information for which some data are missing but potentially obtained. يعني ممكن تكون عندي information معلومة لكن there are some data are missing. For example, what is the past medical history of an unconscious patient who arrives at emergency department? In the real time, I don't know about the past medical history of this patient, but I can obtain it later on. Second, uncertain information, which is the information for which it is not possible to objectively determine whether it's true or false. So هي information ما أقدر أحدد إذا هي true or false. For example, how many female humans are in the US? حتى لو كان عندي an answer to this question at any given moment, I have to get this answer by using statistics. Third, imprecise information, which is the information that is not as specific as it should be. For example, if I have a patient and this patient has pneumonia, is this information is enough for me to determine its treatment? Of course not. For example, antibiotics can treat bacterial pneumonia, but it doesn't treat the patient with viral pneumonia. Fourth, vague information, which is information that includes elements, for example, predicate or quantifiers that permit boundary cases, such as tall woman. Okay, tall woman, which kind of tall? Or fat man, which kind of fat? So it's unlike uncertain information. With the vague information, there is no underlying matter or fact. Finally, inconsistent information, which is information that contains two or more assertions that cannot be held together at the same time. يعني for example, date of birth. One person is impossible that he has two dates of birth. And this is an example of inconsistent information. Here we have some terminologies. First, the ICD type, which is the International Classification of Diseases. It's an international standard for reporting diseases and health conditions. Second, we have the ICD-10-CM, and we've talked about it before, اللي هي International Classification of Diseases 10th Revision Clinical Modification, اللي احنا قلنا نستخدمها to convert data to information. Third, the staging database, which is used in the clinical data warehouse process to convert the information to knowledge. So it's used to load the data from different sources سواء كانت electronic health records أو any other information systems. It's going to be modified and cleaned the staging database, and then it's going to be loaded and stored in the data warehouse.